Then the first command instructed Rahula to strike the bell once, and he asked Ananda, "Did you hear that?" Ananda and the members of the great assembly all said, "We heard it." The bell ceased to sound, and the Buddha again asked, "Do you hear it now?" Ananda and the members of the great assembly all said, "We do not hear it." Then Rahula struck the bell once again. The Buddha again asked, "Do you hear it now?" Ananda and the great assembly again said, "We hear it." The Buddha asked Ananda, "What do you hear, and what do you not hear?" Ananda and the members of the great assembly all said to the Buddha, "When the bell is rung, we hear it. Once the sound of the bell ceases, so that even its echo fades away, we do not hear it." The third command again instructed Rahula to strike the bell, and he asked Ananda, "Is there sound now?" Ananda and the members of the great assembly all said, "There is a sound." After a short time the sound ceased, and the Buddha again asked, "Is there a sound now?" Ananda and the great assembly answered, "There is no sound." After a moment, Rahula again struck the bell, and the Buddha again asked, "Is there sound now?" Ananda and the great assembly said together, "There is sound." The Buddha asked Ananda, "What is meant by sound, and what is meant by no sound?" Ananda and the great assembly told the Buddha, "When the bell is struck, there is sound. Once the sound ceases and even the echo fades away, there is said to be no sound." The Buddha said to Ananda and the great assembly, "Why are you inconsistent in what you say?" The great assembly and Ananda then asked the Buddha, "In what way have we been inconsistent?" The Buddha said, "When I asked you if it was your hearing, you said it was your hearing. Then when I asked you if it was sound, you said it was sound. I cannot ascertain from your answers if it is hearing or if it is sound. How can you not say this is inconsistent?" Ananda, when the sound is gone without an echo, you say there is no hearing. If there were really no hearing, the hearing nature would be extinguished. It would be just like dead wood. If then the bell were sounded again, how would you know? What you know to be there or not there is the defining object of sound. But could the hearing nature be there or not be there depending on your perception of its being there or not? If the hearing could really not be there, what would perceive that it was not? And so, Ananda, the sounds that you hear are what are subject to production and extinction, not your hearing. The arising and cessation of sounds cause your hearing nature to be as if there or not there. You are so upside down that you mistake sound for hearing. No wonder you are so confused that you take what is everlasting for what is annihilated. Ultimately, you cannot say that there is no hearing nature apart from movement and stillness and from obstruction and penetration. Consider a person who falls into a deep sleep while napping on his bed while he is asleep. Someone in his household starts beating clothes or pounding rice. In his dream, the person hears the sound of beating and pounding and takes it for something else, perhaps for the striking of a drum or the ringing of a bell. In the dream, he wonders why the bell sounds like a stone or wood. Suddenly he awakens and immediately recognizes the sound of pounding. He tells the members of his household, "I was just having a dream in which I mistook the sound of pounding for the sound of a drum." Ananda, how can this person in the dream state remember stillness and motion, opening and closing, and penetrability and obstruction? Yet, although he is physically asleep, his hearing nature is not drowsy. Even when your body is gone and your light and life move on, how could this nature leave you? But because living beings from time without beginning have pursued forms and sounds and have followed their thoughts as they turn and flow, they still are not enlightened to the purity, wonder, and permanence of their nature. They do not accord with what is eternal, but trace after things which are subject to production and extinction. Because of this, they are born again and again and become mixed with defilement as they flow and turn. But if they reject production and extinction and uphold true permanence, an everlasting light will appear, and with that, the sense organs, defiling objects, and consciousnesses will disappear. The appearance of thought becomes defilement. The emotions of the consciousness become filth. If you stay far away from these two, then your Dharma eye will accordingly become pure and bright. How could you fail to accomplish unsurpassed knowledge and enlightenment? Ananda said to the Buddha, "Won't honored one, the first Common has explained the two meanings, yet as I now contemplate a pupil in the wand, I believe that if they try to untie a knot and cannot find its center, they will never get the knot undone. Word honored one, I and all the other sound hearers in the great assembly who are not beyond learning are the same way. From time without beginning, we have been accompanied in birth and death by ignorance. We have obtained these good rules of erudition and are said to have left the home life, yet in fact we act like someone with a recurrent fever. I only hope that you, the greatly compassionate one, will take pity on us. We are sinking and drowning, so that to this very day we do not know how our bodies and minds are in knots or how to go about untying them. Your explanation will also enable future living beings who are in suffering and difficulty to avoid the turning wheel and not fall into the three realms of existence." After saying this, he and the entire great assembly made full prostrations. He wept profusely and with sincere anticipation awaited the unsurpassed instruction of the Buddha, the first come one. Then the world-honored one took pity on Ananda and on those in the assembly with something left to study as well as on living beings of the future in order to help them transcend the world and become eyes for the future. He rubbed the crown of Ananda's head with his Jambudnada, purple golden bright hand. Instantaneously, all the Buddha lands in the 10 directions quaked in 6 waves. In 6 ways. Thus come ones as numerous as fine motes of dust, each dwelling in his respective world, emitted a precious light from the crown of his head. At one and the same time, their light went from their own countries to the Jeta Grove, and anointed the crown of the first come one's head. All in that great assembly obtained what they had never had before. Then Ananda and everyone in the great assembly heard the first come ones, as numerous as fine motes of dust throughout the 10 directions, speak to Ananda with the different mouths, but in a single voice. Good indeed, Ananda, you wish to recognize your innate ignorance that causes you to turn on the wheel. The origin of the knot of birth and death is simply your 6 sense organs and nothing else. You also want to understand the unsurpassed Bodhi so that you can quickly realize bliss, liberation, tranquility, and wonderful permanence. It too is your 6 sense organs and nothing else. Ananda heard these sounds of Dharma, but he did not yet understand in his mind. Bowing his head, he said to the Buddha, "How can what causes me to revolve in the cycle of birth and death, and what enables me to gain bliss and wonderful permanence be the 6 sense organs in both cases and nothing else?" The Buddha said to Ananda, "The sense organs and the objects are of the same source. The bonds and the release are not two. The nature of the consciousness is empty and false. It is like a strange flowers in space. Ananda, sense awareness, arises because of the sense objects. The appearance of objects exists because of the sense organs. The appearance and the perception, both devoid of a nature, support each other like intertwining reeds. Therefore, you now base your knowledge on awareness and perception, but that is fundamental ignorance. The absence of a view regarding awareness and perception is nirvana, the true purity of no outflows. How could there be anything else in the midst of it? Then the world-honored one, wishing to restate these meanings, spoke verses, saying, in their true nature, conditioned things are empty. They spring from causes as illusions do. Things unconditioned neither rise nor cease. Unreal they are, like flowers in space. To speak of the false is to reveal the true, but both the false and the true are false themselves. If there is neither truth nor untruth, how can there be perceiver and perceived? Between them the two in fact have no nature, thus they are likened to entwining reeds. The knots and their release have a common cause. The sages and ordinary people's paths are not two. Regard the nature of the intertwined. Emptiness, existence, both are not. Dark confusion is simply ignorance. Bringing it to light is liberation. The knots must be untied successively. When the six are released, even the one ceases to be. Select an organ preferred for perfect penetration. Enter the flow and realize proper enlightenment. Extremely subtle, the Adana consciousness makes patterns of habit that flow on in torrents. Fearing you will confuse the truth with what is not, I rarely tell you all of this. With your own mind, you grasp at your own mind. What is not illusory turns into illusion. If you don't grasp, there is no non-illusion. If even non-illusion does not arise, how can illusory dhammas be established? This is called the wonderful lotus flower, the regal viral gem of enlightenment. And this samapati that is likened to illusion transcend all study instantly. This abhidharma incomparable is the single pathway through Nirvana's gate, taken by Bhagavans in all the 10 directions. When Ananda and the Great Assembly heard the unsurpassed compassionate instruction of the Buddha, the first come one, this harmonious and brilliant Gaya verse with its clear and penetrating wonderful principles, their hearts and eyes were opened and they exclaimed that dhammas such as this had never been before.